Hello friends, it's Laura from Cool Mom and Collected, and in today's video, I'm sharing reasons we don't share our children on social media. I did touch on this topic in a recent blog post, and I decided to film it on YouTube because honestly, I feel like I can just expand so much more, but I will link that blog post down below. So we're gonna get into it. I think it's really important to share my story and my husband's story of why we don't share our children on social media, because we are the minority. Most people are sharing their children on social media, many with great intentions and many with not. So I want to kind of talk about, for any new mom out there, maybe a pregnant mother that's watching this and you're like, should I share my child on social media? It's not a big deal, right? It is a big deal. It is a big decision. And it's worth asking yourself these questions before you step into the world of social media with your child. Let's move you guys this way. So one thing that my husband and I did very early on, and I think this really paved the way for unity and just wonderfulness when it came to social media, is we asked ourselves very early on, what do you think about social media? Like, we're pregnant, when we have a baby, like, are we going to put them on social media? And we both looked at each other. We got very like mama bear protective. No, just something did not feel right. But once we determined that we both did not feel comfortable, we had that talk, we both did not feel comfortable sharing our children on social media. The next step was obviously sharing with loved ones and friends. So we kind of had the talk. We initiated the talk with people. Oh, by the way, you know, when we have this baby, we talked about it. We're not going to be sharing them on social media at all. And you guys will understand the reasons we shared with them down below. But we made it clear before we had the baby. We didn't want any awkwardness. We didn't want any drama. We wanted everybody to know what we were doing and why, if they were curious. Now, when our first baby was born, we had a message that we sent out, a birth announcement message to all of our friends and family. We included the exciting update of the birth and whatever the birth story that we wanted, the baby's photo, the name, the birth weight, and we ended it with, please do not announce, share, or post baby's photo on any platforms of social media, as we have decided not to share our children online for privacy reasons. Thank you so much for your understanding. We set the boundary with our first, and it has followed with our second, our third, our fourth, our fifth, and we have not looked back. It has been the best decision, knowing that our children are not on social media, that their information, their names, where they live, where they do extracurricular activities, all these things. It has just been such a peace of mind. And it's something that I will never and have never regretted. We also really appreciated the respect that we got from family that at the time totally understood where we were coming from. And then others who at the time honestly did not and didn't really see the big deal. And they supported us, which was so sweet, even though they didn't agree. And now they're actually coming to us saying, hey, you did the right thing because this is a crazy world and we get it now. So people don't have to get why, but they do need to respect you as you are your own little family and you get to make those choices for your child that nobody else can make. We live in a society where if you got it, flaunt it. You got a happy life, prove it. You got a husband that you love, prove it. You got babies that are adorable, fun, and happy, prove it. It's like we can't just know in our heart that we have these things. We need to prove it to the world. And that's something that I despise about social media. I do have a little disclaimer. I know that every family is different. Every family dynamic is different. I want to make it very clear. We have friends that we love and respect very much who do share their children on social media. This isn't to push any judgment on anybody who chooses to do these things. This is why we don't. Reason number one, privacy concerns. Unfortunately, there's no denying that we live in a crazy, crazy world. And unfortunately, that world is filled with predators and people that don't have your children's best interests at heart. Should we live in fear? Of course not. But should we also just act like it's not there? No. We need to have that healthy balance. Sadly, even the most innocent pictures that you may be posting of your children can be used and twisted and exploited by malicious individuals. For me and my husband, knowing that there's even a potential for that, there's just not a chance. For us personally, there's not a chance that I will share my children publicly with the world, knowing that. Another thing is, I feel very uncomfortable with this false relationship that people on the other side of the screen have with people's children when they put them on the screen. That false reality, I forgot what it's called. This false idea that they know my children is not only extremely freaky to me, but I think it would be freaky for my child. So if I was put on social media as a child, exploited, unintentionally or intentionally. And I'm walking around and someone's like, oh my gosh, how are you? And I'm like, who are you? And they're like, oh, I've seen you since you were a little baby. Oh, you know my mom? Oh, no, I'm just a subscriber. I'd be like, okay. World's a scary place. I personally cannot imagine that being something that will be enjoyable. Then you open yourself up to a host of people that you may not even know are looking. I think honestly something that shaped my outlook on this was, I remember when I was younger, I was watching an episode of Maury. You guys remember Maury? There was this woman that was deranged in some way, and she actually printed photos of another woman's children that she didn't know the kids at all, posted them all over her home, framed them all over, and was telling people that they were her children. And it just freaked me out, where I was like, okay, note to self, don't let people get access of photos to your children. Keep those private. Those are for you. You remember what it was like when you would take a picture and it was just for you? It's also important to realize that once pictures are shared on social media, they're there. They're there forever. Once they're put out onto the internet, they're there forever. Even if you decide to delete them later, they can be shared, stored, or saved by others, which, as I mentioned, could potentially expose them to some serious privacy risks. Number 2, safety concerns. Another reason we choose not to put our children on social media is I really don't believe that anybody needs to have my child's information but their mom and dad. Strangers should not know what the front of their home looks like, what they look like, what their medical history is, their names, the school that they go to, their interests, the daily routines. I mean, this is very, very personal information. And honestly, in many cases, even if an adult were to ask your child some of these things, your child might be too shy to even tell them. Sadly, this information can be maliciously used against them, and it can cause many dangerous scenarios where strangers can have access to them. You could say, yeah, well, we'll prepare them for that. We're going to proactively prepare them because they're in the limelight and we want to make sure. To us, that was still like an unnecessary aspect of life. Why put them in that position if they don't have to be? Not to mention, sharing personal information and personal photos of children has and can make them vulnerable to unnecessary criticism like cyberbullying. We just did not see the benefit of exposing our children to all of this at a young age. And even if your child is unaware of the negative comments, maybe you say, oh, they don't know. We don't tell them the negative comments. This could really impact a child's mental health. We see it now when we see teenagers that are on social media. They're depressed. They're not happy. They're comparing themselves worse than we've ever compared ourselves in our day and age. Is this something we really need our children to experience? Number 3, respecting our children as persons. Now, a lot of people look at their child and, they're babies, they're babies. Those are people. Those are real people that are going to grow up to have real childhood memories, to have real life experiences, and you are in charge of them. If you guys don't know, we have 5 children. And they're wonderful. I have no doubt that sharing my children on social media would gain me an incredible amount of followers. I know people love big families. I know people love beautiful kids. I know people love watching little children. They think it's adorable. But the problem is I have no desire to profit off of my kids. The idea sickens me. I refuse to profit off my kids, use them intentionally or unintentionally for growth, for likes. I want to respect their personhood, their childhood, and treat them as children, not as content. Most young children don't understand the long-term ramifications of being on social media. So yeah, you might say, well, I kind of have their consent. They ask me to film. They want to be on my phone. They want to be on social media. It's like, okay, do they want to jump off a bridge because they think they'll land in a pool of jello? Made no sense. Do they want to crawl over the rope of a zoo and jump into a lion's cage to pet the lion? These are things we have to think about. As they grow older, their stance may change on this. And in fact, they might actually have bitterness. They might feel violated by the decisions that were made for them when they really didn't know. This is an area we feel very strongly that we do not want to cross. Reason number 4, desiring a social media free culture at home. I am so thankful that most of my childhood, actually all of my childhood, was off social media. I don't have the experience of my parents putting me on social media because it didn't exist back then. I'm in the generation of one of the last people to experience time before social media. I believe I was a very confident and secure child because I didn't have social media. My identity was rooted in Christ, not how many followers I had. And I didn't have the pressure of participating in trends that show how cool you are or who did it better or how many people like what you did. And I didn't put what others thought of me in high regard. This is completely changed now with social media. Everything is about likes, follows, who did it best, proving it, all those things. Hypothetically, if my parents had put me on social media, I think I would later have a huge problem with it because I enjoy my peace, my privacy. I enjoy the intimacy of life. I enjoy not everybody knowing everything about me, but I know I personally would not have liked being on display. I probably would have felt heavily violated. This leads me to want to give my children a social media free home. I don't want them to be thinking about the approval of others. They're already going to deal with social pressures in the real world, and just giving them that social pressure on social media, it just sounds so heavy and unnecessary. I want the primary motivation and reason for us capturing memories as a family to be about us enjoying those memories as a family. And there are already enough distractions for a mother to go through. And I think having her phone in her hand, or having kids repeat things so she can get it on social media, or having kids, do things over and over and over so that it pleases everybody else. I think it's really hard to do that where your children are not impacted in some way. I want my children to look for acceptance or likes, or to get thrown into the world early of comparison and anxiety, which I believe they will all be faced with. This is already a very real and painful part of the real world. That was my 4 reasons why we do not want our children on social media, why we choose not to put them on. Let me know in the comments below, is this something you struggle with? What is your stance? I think it's good to consider the privacy, the safety risks, the long-term mental effects. We don't know what that's going to be like. If you do want to stop sharing your children on social media, I just want to encourage you. It's okay to change your mind on something. You don't need to prove it to anyone. You don't need to explain it to anyone. You can send them this video and share, these are the reasons why. The children that are off social media, there's going to be a lot that they're not going to have to deal with. And I think that it could feel like a sacrifice to some, but I think that it's going to be a real sacrifice of love to hold those children back, to keep their childhoods and their privacy and their information for them. And when they're older, they can choose what they want to do with that. I'm doing my best on this channel to show, hey, I'm a mom, I'm relevant, but I don't need to show you my children to prove it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, no judgment if you do different, but I do want to share. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.